Well, we done it. We got it finished in time. First thing I wanted to do was get a head start on getting all this chrome stripped off. This extra shiny chrome has a lot of nickel in it, so it can be very stubborn sometimes. It took about 6 hours just to break through the chrome, and then about another hour once it had time to seep up under it and break it all free. Now that process started, it's time to move on and waste a whole lot of expensive masking tape. On my hunt for reference photos, I saw a few trucks that had these aftermarket stainless steel inner fenders, and I wanted to duplicate that the best I could because I really like that look. So for this and all the silver shades that you guys see going forward, I used all the same paint. It's Testors Metallic Silver. And oddly enough, this pulled up all that rust weathering I had done, but only up here. It didn't do it anywhere else on the body. From there, it's just more masking and more painting. Now for the wooden bed floor, these decals, I took a risk, and it kind of paid off. At least I think so. You see that thinner strip in the center? What they want you to do is install the left side first, then this side, and it will overlap. I didn't like the thin strip in the middle, so I did backwards and overlap so the other decal would cover that thin strip. That way, I would have an even board spacing throughout the whole bed. You'll see this here in a brief glimpse in the next frame. Right there. And what I'm doing here is I'm just using the flat part of a toothpick, just to dab on some silver paint down inside the taillight buckets and the surrounding trim. And I've mentioned this before a few times, my method for these small tiny little lenses, I just do a bad job of cleaning them up and force them into place. So the extra flashing where I cut it off from the sprue, all that creates friction and it'll hold it in place just as well as any glue. Oh yeah, this was also a pain in the ass. Those were all individual decals. The problem was the decals were just a little bit bigger than the recesses that they're supposed to fit in. So yeah, have fun if any of you guys ever build this kit. You guys remember Chauncey? All his brothers and sisters are all coming in the colder it gets outside. Now one complaint I have is these side markers did not have a lens, so I went to my parts bin to see what I could find. It was probably more work, but what I did is I sanded those down to make them shorter so they would fit down inside that recess. And before anybody asks, I have no idea what these came off of. I've just collected a mass of unused parts after years and years of building. A long time ago, I used to watch this Japanese model builder. He used a wax pencil for photo etch and these small little parts like this. If you guys just go to Google and type in wax pencil, you're going to see they're like $14. So I was telling the wife when she goes to the craft store to keep an eye out for them if they ever go on sale. Then she told me about this rhinestone pickup tool. It's the exact same thing, only it was $3. Now for these windows, I've been trying to use that microset crystal clear stuff more and more. I'm not entirely sure I like it all that much. Don't get me wrong, it works. It holds the windows well, it dries super clear. Problem is that it's just kind of messy. Luckily though, if you get to it before it dries, it just easily cleans up with some water. On this core support here, I ran into just a little bit of a problem. That's my fault though. When I was doing all the test fitting for the engine, I did not have that piece in place, so it doesn't clear this intercooler. An easy solution though, I just install it from the bottom. If you look at the inner fender wheels, you'll see that I had to hack them up to clear the turbos and exhaust. So plenty of room to do this from the bottom. Now watching me do this on film here, it's kind of sad. All the rust weathering that I've done on this, it's got about 4 or 5 different shades of brown and orange mixed in. It just doesn't really show all that well here. This interior tub was kind of a tight fit, so feel free to get kind of manly with it. And what I'm doing now is I'm trying to get this just wedged into place or just held in place somehow. It's just going to kind of float there until I get the chassis installed. Then I'll push it down onto the mounts. The chassis was just as tight of a fit as the interior tub. Just a lot of pulling and pushing and being rough with it. And on this build, I'm actually okay with that. When I don't have to take precautions to not hurt or damage a perfect paint job, it just goes a whole lot smoother. I've debated on the wheels for this entire build, and I've settled on gunmetal gray. At first I went online to look at the wheels to see what other options they come in. It's extremely hard to find these wheels, but I did finally find them. They're made by Triumph Forged Wheels. The model wheel, they call it the Timeless, and they only come with a bare aluminum rim and this olive drab green center section. and that's not going to fit this build that well. So, gunmetal gray all around. Now, normally, I like to install the wheels later on, almost towards the end of the build. In the past, when I'm handling the model and doing all kinds of stuff, I've actually broken them off the mounting tabs a few times. Being that these are going to fit up inside the fender well, I'm going to have to install these now and just be careful. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds different from clip to clip. I'm walking around the house doing chores, so you're hearing different echoes in different rooms. This bed was just not fitting that well. What I eventually found out is one of the mounting holes wasn't clear, so I had to go back in and re-drill it. So I'm going to throw the front wheels on here real quick. Since we modified the suspension so much, I want to do a little sanity check. That just consists of me going down, pushing on all four corners, giving it the wobble test, just to make sure that all four tires are touching the ground. This one has zero wobble. It sits level and all four tires are making contact with the ground. And I just was really not liking how flush this thing was not sitting and just how out of place it looked. Then I realized I put it in upside down. There we go. That is a whole lot better. Now, on the contrary, the front bumper I purposely installed upside down. Either that or the instructions were wrong. You see the little notches at the top of the bumper? Those are supposed to slot in to those outward bumper supports. The reason I had done this, because if you install it the way you're supposed to, it just looks like it's got an underbite to it. So if you do it upside down, the bumper will just slope downwards, and to me, that just looks better and more sleek. If you recall, in a past video, I talked about how I'd broken off one of those fragile bumper supports. Well, now this rear bumper sits crooked. That is okay though, because for this type of build, that does not look out of place at all. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it, but I ran out of time on this build. I had an idea to use an old necklace to make the proper chains and latches for this tailgate. So maybe I'll add it later on down the road. Who knows? And I strongly recommend using some slow setting glue for this because you're going to spend a little bit of time adjusting it to make sure it's right. Now, from what I could gather from all the reference photos, that body line on the roof, it is supposed to run parallel with that accent piece. Now, on step one of the build, I had taken the time to properly drill and pin all these small little fiddly pieces. So now that we're at the end, the assembly just goes that much smoother. At least it usually does when I could find the hole. Oh, there it is. Now, one thing that kind of let me down is the wiper blades. They were so small and thin that when I cut them off the sprues, they had just broke. Now, luckily, I did find one chrome wiper blade in my parts bin, so this truck will still have just one wiper blade. Since I was kind of a mad rush towards the end here, I did not film me installing it, but you will see it in place here in all these still shots. Now, this build done, I do gotta let you guys know I'm gonna take a week off here. Next Monday, November 7th, is my birthday, so we're gonna be up in Kansas City for the Whiskey Fest. I should be back that following Wednesday for the next unboxing and we start the next build. That is the end of this build though, guys. Thank you so much for watching and following along.